What is up, everybody? This is Eric of Mindful Motion LA, and today we're going to be talking about leg extensions, how to set yourself up safely so that you don't damage your knee long term, and some of the things you might think about to make this exercise more engaging and more effective. All right, so first things first, depending on the leg extension you're using, you might have the option to change your starting position with the input pad. And then there could also be an option to have a range limiter on this back side. So this is the range limiter. You can unscrew it, attach it to different places to prevent the input pad going past a certain degree of knee extension. Someone with a sensitive knee, maybe noise or arthritic changes in the knee, they don't want to go through the whole motion. Having a range limiter is really nice. If you don't have that option, then don't worry about that. One of the things that you want to think about that all machines have is this axis right here where this input pad spins around. You want to line your knee up with this axis. So when you're sitting on this machine, you want to line your knee up with this axis. Basically trying to ensure that the pad doesn't go up and down your leg when you're moving through this. So if we're looking at me and I slip in here, the knee joint isn't the knee cap, it's within the bones inside your knee. And best way to just figure out if you're in the right place is just to do a rep. And if you see the pad sliding up and down your leg like this, then you're not lined up properly. That kind of messes with the sensation of the exercise and can actually, if you have sensitive knees, can actually put some forces through the knees that doesn't feel very good. And you can almost see me when I'm doing it, that this is sliding up and down my shins. So I'm not lined up. I'm a little bit too far forward. So if I move it back a little bit, now when I do it, it doesn't move on my shins, and that means I'm in the right place. Now, setting up your knees in the right position is a critical piece of this exercise. You should not have your knees angled out or in. That is like the equivalent of taking a door hinge and trying to move it in the wrong direction. And if you do that aggressively over time enough, you will damage the door hinge or completely obliterate it. So if you're doing leg extensions like this or like this, you are putting your knee in a position to get injured. You're basically putting forces across the knee in a direction the knee doesn't move, encouraging dislocation. So I know there's a lot of people out there spouting that turning your legs in and out might target different sides of your quads, and that is just completely false. So what you want to do, best way if you're not sure how to envision where your knee is straight, is just get on top of the pad, straighten your legs, and look at your kneecaps. Are they pointing up to the sky or are they angled? You want them pointing straight up. Now it's very common for people to have a side that wants to be turned out or turned in more, and you might have to work harder to manage one side more than another, but ultimately we just want to keep these things up. My structure is not, it's not super obvious in the sense that some people when they're straight, their shins are pointing out, and they have to turn their legs in more. Others like myself, it's not the case as much. So what I'm trying to allude to is that the way I look might not be the way you look, but the only thing that really matters is that this knee is pointing up, and then you bend your knees and making sure they're pointing straight out. Wherever your shins lay or your calves hit on the pad is kind of roughly where you're going to be underneath it. So you can just swing yourself back underneath. Try to be in a similar angle that you were just at when your legs were straight. And then try one out. And if you notice when you get up to the top that they're still pointing straight up, then you're good to go. If you get up and you're a little bit angled, then readjust and then try to own that position. It's going to require maintenance and attention to manage the position, because very often when people return down, they'll roll out and roll in to come up. And that's a way of somewhat avoiding the resistance and putting it, taking like a little break, if you will. But it's also mostly just not knowing how to manage it and doing it. It's more of a control motor learning thing. Within time, if you focus, it gets better. Okay, so now you're lined up with the machine and the pad isn't sliding up and down your legs. All these machines have handles here. And the purpose of the handles is to keep your butt in the seat. If you lift this pad up with any significant amount of weight, your butt will come out of the chair. and that's just going to be a reaction to the force pushing into your shins. The only way to ensure that that doesn't happen is either to hold yourself down, or if the machine has a belt, you could use that. So most machines don't have belts. Using your hands, pulling down, keeping your butt glued to the chair will change how intensely your quads are working. If you lift and your butt comes up, that is reducing the load that your legs have to lift because your body weight is taking some of it. So holding yourself down is an important feature. Now, if you do have a belt, this is a great anti-cheating device, because if you drop away from this belt, you know that you've rested or relaxed your legs a little bit, and you've let your body weight take over the load. So when I come into going through the motion, I'm actually trying to lift myself into the belt the whole time, and this keeps this stuff tight, and this is holding me in place. This is a substitute for your hands, and in some ways superior for some people, because you don't have to work your upper traps and upper back. It's hard to keep yourself in the right position. You can just think about doing the leg extension. So if you have a belt, it's worth using. If you don't, hold yourself down with your hands. So what's really also a fun thing to think about when you're pushing through a leg extension is this thing moves around an arc. So there's only going to be at the beginning a push out, and then it's a push kind of out and up, and then a push up. So mentally in your head, if you think just out, it doesn't feel the same as if you think out, out and up, out and up, 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 up. Kind of thinking around the arc, that can change the way your body coordinates this thing, or at least how it feels to you. So just thinking of pushing in the direction perpendicular to that pad, and same thing on the way down, really alters the experience. So you could think out, reaching out, and then up, and then you could think reach out on the way down. That almost helps keep your legs engaged, and it encourages your body to move in this arc that the machine moves in. So that's one piece as far as the path of motion is concerned. The other thing when you're doing this is trying to own and control the speed and changes in directions. Most people, they just go boom like this. You just saw the whole thing fly out of my leg, right? Meaning that thing is, when this is air, this resistance. So there's actually not a lot of momentum here, but most leg extensions have a lot of momentum. So if you're throwing it really fast, you're not lifting the weight. So you really want to see if you can own the motion with some degree of control, stopping and starting without too much acceleration until you get better at it. And then on top of that, if you finally have the tempo and control down, start to intentionally contract these to produce the motion. Carry the weight up with your quads, build that tension up, squeeze them, and then just back off and reduce the tension to come down. But you're always tight, and you're trying to get this complete ownership over these muscles. And that will make the exercise a lot more enriching, and definitely more effective long term. Some people, when they straighten their legs, have so much tension running through their hamstrings that they can't fully extend, and it has nothing to do with the strength of their quads. One way to work around that is to decrease the amount of hip bend they have, hip flexion. That's why you see this pad here that I have. What it does is it kind of reclines the client a little more. But you don't have to have this particular piece. You could just put potentially a little pillow here, pushing their butt forward and basically encouraging a little bit of a reclining aspect to their sitting position. And depending on how severe their hip flexion, their hamstring tension is, you might have to recline them more or less. Some people don't even need it. So it just depends on the person, but it can be a big deal for some people if they can't straighten their knee because of their own internal tension. Now, most machines have the option to move this input pad up or down. And one thing, if you're somebody with a sensitive knee, The lower this input pad is, the farther down your shin you put the load, the more potential joint stress there will be. So if you've had a knee injury, ACL reconstruction, maybe some arthritic changes in your knees, or just have pain, bringing this input pad up higher, closer to your knee joint, so it's like close to top, will reduce the stress on the joint significantly. So if it looks very different when it's that high, right? Now notice, knowing one thing, the higher you place it, you might have to alter how much load you have, because the closer it is to the joint, the easier it can be. But it is a very helpful tactic to reduce potential joint discomfort, noise, and or pain, right? And for some people, that can be a game changer and can make this exercise viable versus not doing it at all.